Welcome to Stewardship Week 4. This week we will highlight some of St. George's work in the community. St. Georgians are not afraid to tackle difficult topics like homelessness and incarceration. Today we'll talk about our parishioners' work with the Breaking Bread community and with Kiros, a Christian organization that provides spiritual support to prisoners. First, to check in on our progress. We are up to 50 pledges totaling $123,905. This is great progress, although we've lost some of the linearity in our line here, so please get those pledges in. We have another 3 weeks and need another $164,095 to reach our goal of $288,000 for 2025. So get those pledges in, and we thank you for your support. Before we learn more about Kiros, a debut from St. George's Vestry Choir.
Oh, victory in Jesus, my Savior forever. He sought me and bought me with his redeeming blood. He loved me and I knew him, and all my love is to him. He plunged me to victory beneath the cleansing flood.
All right. Hello, Father Joel, Frank, and James. So we wanted to take this opportunity to learn more about a ministry of St. George's that not everyone knows about or has spent time volunteering for, and that is your work with prisoners. So I guess first, tell us a little bit about the prison. Generally, where is it? What is the population like? And what sort of time are they serving?
Well, Frank really got us into this. Frank,
It's
would you?
it's a local state prison. It houses approximately 1,200 men. It's considered a transition prison, which means that people serve time there if they're due to be released before too long. It's considered a program prison, which means that some prisoners transfer in from other state prisons because of a program that Chester offers that may not be available where they're housed. So these are not, you don't have a lot of lifers in this kind of an institution. You do have some longer sentences, but generally it's a turnover location. You don't have real long sentences, and you have people that are getting ready to transition and go out on parole or have completed their sentence. And it's down in Chester, very near the river, near the casino down there and near the soccer stadium.
So
Great.
how
So tell us a little bit about what you do when you go for a visit.
Well, we're part of an organization. It's a Christian, it's an ecumenical organization that is based, it's a prison ministry. And the idea is to offer a program for these men so that they can get together. And the program is actually designed around a series of 3-day weekend retreats. We haven't been able to do that since COVID shut down those kinds of programs. But we've been doing Friday night prayers and prayer and shares, which means that a group of volunteers goes in every Friday night to get together with this Christian fellowship that has been built there between the inmates and spend time with them. We have a structure that is followed somewhat loosely, but it involves initial singing, it involves prayers, and then it involves some themes about difficulties in their life and how that intersects with their spiritual life and their relationship with God. So it's a really simple program based on the premise that we're there to share God's love in a setting that God himself identified when Jesus said, visit those in prison. And we're not there to preach. We're not there to convert. We're not there to evangelize directly. We're there to, the motto is listen, listen, love, love. So we're there to show God's love and to share that love and to show these guys support and a non-judgmental presence. So as they struggle to try to accept God's love and God's forgiveness and to turn their lives around. So it's an incredibly powerful experience on a weekly basis for anyone who's been a part of it. And I think we all share that same sentiment.
And you guys go every week or once a month? How often are you guys going up?
Yeah, go ahead, James.
So we basically have a group of, I think it's about, is it 15 volunteers or something in this organization? And it's usually 3 people per Friday. And it just kind of rotates every month who's available to go. I think we try to keep it reasonably consistent as much as we can. So I usually try and volunteer for the last Friday of the each month, and I think Frank and Father Joel also kind of have a try and do it like approximately you know equally, but so yeah, it varies, but it's not dependent on we're not the only 3 people doing it. It's the workload is shared, and it's really just as people are available to do so.
And I assume it's not all Episcopal churches, it's various denominations that are sending people.
Yeah, it's
Right.
an ecumenical group.
So tell us a little bit about your experience there. What's been meaningful to you?
Watching the strength of the faith that these men really latch onto and work with and try to develop and strengthen within themselves and within each other to help them persevere, to turn their lives around, but also in a really practical sense to get through day to day. I mean, given the environment they're in, they have every reason to be angry, defensive, blaming, aggressive, and so on. And that's not what happens. This is a space and this is a program where these men can come and find fellowship, find spiritual support, spiritual guidance from each other, and where they can find an opportunity to be vulnerable and open up and talk about things they can't talk about otherwise. They trust each other, they get to know each other. We actually had a situation where the group has gotten pretty large for the size room we were in, and we offered the option of splitting up the group and holding them in 2 separate rooms and basically having 2 groups on Friday nights. And they said no. They want to be together. They want to know what each of them thinks. They want to call each other out when they need to be called out. And they want this fellowship to be real. It is. I mean, you can feel it. It's palpable.
Do they gather in addition at other times of the week when one of you is not there, or is there a continuation of this sort of practice?
I think this is the only time they have for this kind of thing, but almost all of them do, Bible study on Monday nights, this kind of thing on Tuesday nights. Chester has a lot of offerings like that. So, and then they all go to church, prison church on Sunday. So it's sort of part of their week. But what they say is like it's the only time that they like sit together and they share about their stuff, and they, like Frank was saying, call each other out, and sort of hold each other accountable for things. And uh, I mean, it's really phenomenal. A lot of these guys have never, and what they say is, I've never had friends like this. I've never spoken to people like this before. I've never sort of known what that sort of brotherhood was like. And it's amazing. So I think it sort of firms up these relationships that then go on throughout the week, and they really do stick together. I mean, I think that's part of what's so amazing about it. I mean, it really reminds me of the early church. So there are however many thousands. What do you say, Frank? 1,500?
Yeah, a little less than that, I think. Yeah.
And so there's this like little group of Christians, who keep each other from doing drugs and say prayers and read the Bible together, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing to see.
Yeah, the men are not allowed to get together on their own just because they want to do that.
Yeah.
They have to have a program and they have to have volunteers to run that in order to give them the space and the structure that allows them to be approved to attend.
Do you find that they focus mostly on sort of confession and repentance like behaviors, or are they really future focused on what they're going to be like when they get out and how they're going to change?
From my experiences
Yeah.
in this ministry, absolutely. There is a great deal of focus on not only how do they remain strong in their present circumstances in prison and avoiding getting into trouble, but then also, how do they continue this fellowship? How do they find Christian fellowship once they are released and are free again? And there's, kind of, at least from my experience, from what I've seen, there's very much an awareness of like not wanting recidivism. Like, how do you you know make sure that you keep God and Jesus at the center of your life? And how do you kind of bring this fellowship outside and kind of find your own Christian community and finding a church where you belong. And yeah, it's incredible. It's really, really powerful and moving to see just the support that they have for each other.
Have you
Sounds
had many of them that were regulars kind of move on and move towards being released? And do you hear from them at all? Are they allowed to contact you, or is there any continued relationship?
So they're not allowed to contact, well, I guess hypothetically, they could reach out to us if they wanted to once they were released, but we're not allowed to have contact with them. But we occasionally hear from the other people in the group who have remained in contact. People who are still inside the prison kind of keep us apprised of how they're doing. We have definitely in the past several months that I've been there, we have had quite a few people up for parole and who have been released.
Which is great because then the guys in the group go out and continue to recruit. So even though we've had a lot of people leaving in the last 6 months or so, it seems the group size has continued to grow.
Sounds wonderful. So let me ask, how can St. Georgians support this ministry?
Well, there's a couple. One way that has actually people have done it, may not be well known, but there are prisons outside of this state prison where they're able to do the full weekend retreats. And as part of that process, what the Kiros members do is they ask people to join a prayer wheel and to sign up for slots where they will pray for the people, the inmates that are part of that retreat, wherever it's being held. And then at some point during that weekend, that prayer wheel that's been filled out by volunteers is placed up on a wall. And the inmates are told, well, we've been here for the last day and a half or however long the program's been going on. These are people in all of these different locations that are praying for you. And they're thinking of you and they're wishing you well and trying to give you the support that they think will be helpful. So yeah, the last year, I think it was, there were probably 6 or 7 people. James, you were one of them. Father Joel was one who signed up for slots. So when retreats do occur, and we're going to do it, well, I don't know when we're going to do a full retreat, but there's one coming up at a federal prison in Allenwood up in Williamsport at the end of January. I'm going to participate in that along with some other local Kiros guys. And I will ask for people in the parish to join that effort and to become prayer warriors, basically, and agree to say prayers for the inmates during the course of the retreat weekend.
Yeah,
so that's one way.
Is there an equivalent for women's prisons or not so much?
There is within the program, but there's not one active in Pennsylvania right now. The program that we participate in is called Kiros Inside, and we focus on the men that are incarcerated. There's a tandem program called Kiros Outside, which focuses on the women who have men, husbands, fathers, sons, brothers, somebody who's incarcerated. And it's geared towards providing support for the women who are trying to maintain families, connections, relationships, or just to maintain while someone's incarcerated. Unfortunately, the local program is inactive right now. They were short of volunteers, and I'm not aware of any other in Pennsylvania. There's not a lot of women's prisons, I don't think, in the Commonwealth in Pennsylvania. But right now, yeah, they're not active. But there is a tandem program that's set up within the big Kiros organization under that umbrella.
Yeah, that was one of the things that was sort of I immediately noticed um, about the inside outside stuff. All of these guys, they're all fathers. Like they're all fathers multiple times over. There are a lot of children out there who are the children of those guys in there. I mean, really, sort of across the board. Um, so I pray for the prisoners. Then yeah, you also pray for those families and those kids, young kids, older kids. I mean, all of it.
And how old are the average prisoners? Are they young men there, or they range?
It really ranges. I mean, I was sort of like, I would say most of them are not young. Um, I don't know. What would you guys say?
Mid-30s up to the 60s,
Yeah.
60?
Yeah, I
I
think
don't know.
there's someone in low 20s, one of the meetings that I had attended, so it's a really wide range.
Yeah.
And I would assume the children can visit on occasion or in very controlled ways.
If they're local, it may
Yeah.
be easy, but some of these guys are transferred. They come from different parts of the state, either again because it's a program this prison offers, again because of just who has the room, I guess, within the system,
Mhm.
and if they're perhaps going to get ready to transition out and be released. So it depends. But I know that for those who do get visits, the visits are incredibly important to them.
Yeah, I would imagine. So the other thing that seems to be incredibly important to them is singing. So
Yes.
are they good singers? Do they suggest the tunes? Is this something that you guys come up with and
Well,
you
as
know,
long as you're not
hang
referring
out
to
hymnals?
talent, yeah, as long as you're not referring to talent, I think they're great singers.
So I would just like to say that the Psalms say, make a joyful noise unto the Lord. It doesn't say it has to be in tune.
Right.
Right.
But they
Well,
get
Okay, let's not pick on people that can't sing.
for
I
sure.
can't sing either, and I fit right in. It's
For
great.
sure.
And
The-
I don't know any of the tunes that they're doing, so I just kind of fumble along.
So
But
they
but think
select,
about it.
right?
These guys aren't in a setting where they can walk around and sing and
Right.
belt it out and
Yeah.
do it with other people who are as enthusiastic as they are. And they get together as a group, and man, the energy level just rockets right up, and they get into it. I mean, you can hear it outside that room without a doubt.
It's amazing. There's a book that the Kairos organization put together with I mean, I don't know how many, 400, 300 different things. And and yeah, they just pick, they pick whatever they kind of, somebody, they thumb through it. There's a couple favorites, and people, shout it out and they start. And yes, some of them, are well known, but some of them are not. And somebody says, let's try this for the first time. I mean, like somebody has to know it for the first time because there's no musical
You can't look it up
notation.
on your phone or something and
No phones, no phones, no
the
phones in
phones.
there. Oh
No,
no, no, no.
you can't.
No phones. But they figure it out and they just I mean, you know, uh for whatever reason they're not self-conscious about that. They just do it. And yes, and sometimes the songs just fall apart, right? Like because nobody knows the right meter and everything like it's but man, other times they don't and it's they recently for the last 6 months or so they've always been ending with "I'll fly away," and I always say like when you hear a bunch of prisoners singing the refrain to "I'll fly away" 3 times, like your goosebumps get goosebumps. Like it's pretty intense.
It sounds really meaningful to each of you. How long have you each been working with the program?
Well, Father Joel and I started back before COVID. We were
Okay.
actually going through some of the training, getting ready to go in for a weekend retreat when COVID shut the prisons down. So it opened back up, what, 2 years ago,
Mhm.
I guess, 2022. So I've been doing it since then.
James is newer to the program.
So
Um,
James,
I
what made you want to join up?
so actually through Frank and Father Joel, but also the husband of a co-worker from my wife's former employment, is also very heavily involved with Kairos. And completely outside of St. George's, I was kind of introduced to this prison ministry concept, and I just thought that it seemed incredibly engaging, and you just get to really experience Christianity in a way that we don't, because we don't know what it's like to be incarcerated. I would assume. I certainly don't. And you kind of get this incredible sense of camaraderie and Christian brotherhood that I think you're hard pressed to find outside.
Yeah, so I originally wanted to get involved in prison ministry a long time ago because there are not a whole lot of straight up clear instructions that Jesus gives, right? Like most it's like principles, whatever, but like visiting the prisons, visiting prisoners is like one of them. It's one of those like unambiguous ones, like fantastic. It doesn't get done. It doesn't get done a lot, right? It's like the feeding people, sort of like their programs for that. So I thought, yeah, that would be a good thing to do. And that goes back a ways. I think what I didn't foresee was that uh, you see the gospel in a way that you don't see it anywhere else, because you see it like, what if the gospel was truly all you had? Like, would that be enough? You know, and you see it like, yes, it is enough, right? Like amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Like we see it every time we walk in there. We see these actual stories of like we see these people with actual stories of their lives being turned around by the gospel, like and like nothing else. Like there's no like it's almost like unvarnished, like it's really true. And I think that encounter is just absolutely amazing. Like you don't see it, so like to me, it's like going to church. It's like where I go to church. Like our church, like I end up saying a lot of stuff. I don't say anything there. I just hear people preach the gospel and they don't even know they're doing it. So like to the question, is it forward focused, backward? It's 100% forward focused. Like 100%. Now that doesn't necessarily mean only when they get out. It also means like tomorrow, like what am I going to do tomorrow when I start feeling bad about the past? I start thinking, oh, maybe I should, take up with my drugs again. Maybe, or it's like get so depressed I can't get, leave the cell. And they're like, no, Jesus died. I always say that these guys are literalists. They literally believe that Jesus literally died to literally take away their literal sins. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts. There's no ambivalence. There's no, this or that. It's like, no. Jesus did all this work for me so that I can be alive, so that I can be alive and flourish. It's like an amazing thing. It's an amazing thing to see.
What percentage of the overall prison is open to this kind of message? How many, like, do you have a sort of a rough understanding of how many prisoners or what percentage are in like this Bible study or in other programs that are seeking a spiritual way forward?
I don't. I know that there are different programs available, different faiths programs, but I don't know how many participate.
It wouldn't be super high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you leave,
Yeah.
do you usually feel, I mean, it sounds like you feel inspired rather than depressed, which I might assume you would feel, well, I mean, it can't be the most, bright and cheerful place all around, but it sounds like you don't leave there scarred by the experience or down in the dumps after having spent your time
For
there.
me, it's incredible life affirming. It is. You don't come through feeling depressed. Sometimes amazed at the strength of the faith, amazed at the strength of the fellowship. Sometimes, I mean, there's some sad stories. There are times when these guys do describe a bit about their backgrounds, their family relationships, their past substance issues. Sometimes, rarely, but sometimes their past crimes. And it's tough. I mean, some of these the backgrounds are just horrendous, and that's kind of sad because sometimes I can't help but leave there and wonder there, but for the grace of God, under different circumstances, it's the commonality that we share. And when I say we, I mean, I feel that when I'm with these guys. I assume you guys do too. It's the commonality we feel. What we're sharing is common to all of us. And some of the things that they've experienced, I've experienced. It may be different forms in different ways, but we've all struggled. And we're all the same in those struggles. And we're all the same in looking to faith for answers and support. And for these guys too, that just the unconditional love and forgiveness, I think is new to them. So yeah, it's a incredibly powerful kind of ingredients that come together to make this as meaningful as it is.
Sounds like you guys are getting as much from this experience as you are there to give and share.
It's not even close. Far
Yeah.
more. It's not even it's not even close.
Yep.
And we all say that. Everybody says that, right? Like
Yeah.
that's like the first thing everybody says. Like I went in to do good because Jesus said to, and it's like, no, I'm at, and I think we all like the recipients. Like we are absolutely like it's like going to church. Like it's great stuff.
Amazing. Well, thank you all for sharing all of your experience with us. And I think, Sam, do we have any other questions?
No, is there anything else you guys want to tell us about? Did we hit it all?
It's a great program.
Yeah, it sounds it.
It's
It sounds
great.
like a really remarkable thing that you guys are doing. So thank you for telling us about it, and thanks for talking to us.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
You are welcome.
Or if they can't sit down with them, they can leave them. But and we're hoping to grow this service.
Wonderful.
What it's been doing, and we've been doing this for about a year now, right?
So about a year. So can any of you tell me a little bit about your experience actually taking the meal? Because we heard from Stephanie during church about coming and actually breaking bread with the people who are receiving support. So can any of you tell me about your experience?
Well, Kathy Haddon and I partnered around about a year ago and took the meal down. And frankly, we just dropped it off though because it was such a small space at 107 Long Lane. And then I've since provided a meal two other times, I think, and partnered with another person from church, and that's been my experience every time, is just delivering the food and helping get it set up buffet style, and then I left. I didn't leave, but didn't stay to eat with the residents, but I think that would be a really nice thing to do, and now that you have the facility across the street, it seems like there's a lot more space to do that.
That's right, and I named it Breaking Bread Community with the hope that we could all break bread together. And at the first location that Eileen is explaining, it was really so small because we had not completed renovation, and we were kind of all on top of each other. And so it wasn't really, we didn't have the opportunity for us to break bread, but we are across the street now in a huge facility with long tables that we can set up, and we can all sit around the table in community with each other. So that is really the dream. And we moved in about a couple months ago. So we're moving into space, and everyone, staff and residents alike, are so much happier. They have their own bedrooms, and it's just much more uplifting place.
So we often hear that one of the biggest problems with homelessness is the isolation and the separateness from the rest of the community, and it sounds like that you are breaking through that exactly by building a community, by welcoming people back in, and as you told us the story today about celebrating success over the long term. That sounds like such a beautiful thing to do. So it was amazing to hear that. So let me ask you this. We've talked about supplying dinners, which we have seen many announcements going out, and we would love to have more St. Georgians participate, people. But what other kinds of support could people in St. George provide to you?
There's so many based on the capacity and the interests of the volunteer. So we love workshops. Perhaps we could have a St. George congregant come and lead a movie night or a book reading, or if they have a skill that they want to teach related to potentially cooking or money management. It's really so many different opportunities, and I want us to think beyond soup kitchen, where the only opportunity is to come, get behind a table, and serve somebody a meal. This is not that at all. This really is about creating community. So people can come and we meet people where they are. That's for residents and volunteers alike. We could also use a volunteer who comes on a somewhat regular basis to welcome other volunteers. So usually what happens is we have staff and we have residents, and they are so busy with what they have to do. Sometimes if volunteers come and they haven't been there before, it can be a little intimidating. So we want to make sure that we have those volunteers who are welcomed and maybe given a tour, and they have the explanation of what we're doing there. But certainly we're looking for volunteers to be that kind of volunteer coordinator, facilitator, someone to connect with the volunteers also. We're always looking for grant writers. We need supplies, so people can do a supply drive. There's work that people can do from their homes, potentially helping us with our social media, our website design. But then there's also help that people can be at the shelter, whether it's organizing our supply closet or just sitting and doing game night. We love having card night, chess night. So you have congregants from the church who love to play cards. Come and host a card night. People who love to cut hair. We'll do haircut. In a few days, we're having a makeover night. So
wonderful.
Doing nails and haircuts for everybody. So really want people to think outside of the box and to have fun with it, really.
Right. So when we talk about stewardship, we talk about time, treasure, and talent. And it sounds to me like there's an opportunity to offer all three in support of Breaking Bread community. Ladies, what is the one thing that you would like us to share with St. George's, that you want to make sure no matter what they learn about Breaking Bread community and the outreach community, or committee, for this year, what is the thing you really want St. George's to hear from you today?
This might fit right in here.
Perfect.
The first time that I went to the shelter or spoke to Stephanie, it was made clear that when the people come into the shelter, their hope is to get them back on their feet, to help them find a job, to help them find housing. And that struck me. It's just not a place where people are coming to eat a meal. There's a goal, and their goal is to get them on their feet. And Stephanie actually introduced me to that gentleman you talked about this morning, the one who went to Villanova, and she said he's doing this kind of thing. He's helping these people find a job and find a place to live, which I was impressed by that. It wasn't just make a meal.
So Kathy, it sounds like that really spoke to your heart.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And that resonated with you. So
and I commend him and anyone else involved in that organization to help these people get back on their feet.
That's fantastic.
That's what homeless people need.
Absolutely.
And to Stephanie's point earlier this morning, when she said, the rewards are not, what you have given them. The reward is what they have given you in the end. You come away from that feeling a little bit better. And it's just such a simple thing to do, but you know that you have helped them in some way, and it's what we need to do. I mean, this is all about, in my mind, this is about justice. I mean, their dignity, their equality with us, and I mean, we're kind of leveling the playing field here, hopefully. It's important.
It's wonderful.
And I just have to say that one of my main reasons for joining St. George's Church was the fact that I could get involved with other people who did outreach. And that's for me, that's an important part of being a member of this church.
That is wonderful. And that sounds like it brings the idea of staying connected, staying involved, and being a true community full circle. Because we're trying to bring more people who have had a much harder path into the Delaware County community. Eileen, anything you want to tell us about outreach or breaking bread.
Well, I just think the words from Scripture, what you have done to the least of my brethren, you have done unto me. And I think we're called to do that, to help people in need, wherever that need may be.
Wonderful. Well, I want to thank you all for your time today, and we are looking forward to lots of successful donations and support for Breaking Bread community, and St. George is lucky to have you as a part of our community, so thank you.
I'm grateful for your partnership here. Thank you.
All right, thanks everybody.